Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We welcome everyone. Come on in to Yah's house right now. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. We welcome you to this Torah study on today. I might have to turn it up just a little bit. Those can hear me in the house, and then those online. We welcome you actually to come on in and solicit your prayers, of course, as they go up before the throne of the Most High Yah. And we thank you for this day and the start of a new year. This is a new year unto us, and he plainly says that in the Bible. Oh, here comes Robert. I've already blew it, man. It'll be all right. We'll catch you next time. We'll catch you next time, youngster. But this is a new year for us, and he plainly says that in Torah, in the 12th chapter of Exodus. He plainly says it, and so as we do this study from here all the way up to the Pesach, and we've got ministers here that will be conducting Pesach here at this assembly, and then we have those who will be doing the Passover and the Pesach in their homes. And so we pray that through the multiple scriptures that are coming forth, that there's some notes taken, and that you'll be able to read some of these scriptures as we go forward, because in every house, like we'll have Pesach here in our assembly, but in every house there should be some word. You want to read the Torah. There's certain passages of Torah that we want to read, and even in the new, what we call the New Testament, but we want to be able to make sure we're knowledgeable of this special time. This is a very sacred time for Yasharal. And he says in his word, as we'll look at some scriptures tonight and as we go forward, he says in his word that you will know those who are mine. There will be a difference between his people and the rest of the world, because that's how he designed it. That's how he purposed it. When you understand what holy is, in English is holy, but in the Hebrew it's Kodesh. Kodesh means set apart. You're set apart from everybody else. Yasharal was a nation, and I say Yasharal for those who are joining us and might not have been here too many classes, and you might hear some words and names of the nation and of our Father in heaven and his Son, and some might be thinking, well, who are you saying? What are you saying? But when I say Yasharal, that's Israel. That's just the Hebrew pronunciation of Israel. It's Yasharal. And I know some people they look at the English language as being the superior language. We have to be very careful with that when we think of English being superior. The English language is not the inspired language. English is a translation. What's inspired is the Hebrew. Why is the Hebrew inspired? When he spoke from heaven, he spoke Hebrew. His people spoke Hebrew. The whole book of Torah was written in Hebrew. I know you have the Pesora, what they call the Gospels. You have Paul's, Shaul's writings. Kepha, and Kepha did not know Greek. Kepha knew Hebrew, and he wrote in Hebrew. but they want us to believe that everything was written in the Greek, which it was not. But when you look at inspiration, the only inspired language is that of Hebrew, because that's the language that he spoke, and that's the language that the prophets spoke, and that's the language our Messiah spoke, and that's the language of this book. So English is not inspired, but the Hebrew is. And I know some people say, well, I met him in the English language, and I'm gonna stay with the English language, and that, what you're going to be saved by is your faith. You're gonna have to have faith, and he moves on your faith and what you believe. There's a day coming where it says we'll all call on him in one language. There's going to be one language, and it's not going to be the English, and we're all going to call on his name, that one name, and it's going to be Hebrew. But until then, those who are still learning, and maybe they haven't been fully awakened yet, because I feel, especially here and just listening to people and some that tune in from time to time, I feel and got a sense through the Spirit that some are just riding the coattails of my awakening. And I don't want to make it, I'm not trying to puff myself up. I don't want to, there's no pride here. But people are not fully awakened. And so they're saying, well, if that's what he's teaching, well, I'm going to follow the teaching and be obedient, which we have to. If we want eternal life, we have to be obedient. But there comes a time where he will awaken you, and then that becomes a personal thing. Then it's personal with you and the Messiah when he fully awakens you. And you have some that he has spoken to, and they refuse it. So then you just have to deal with that when you see him. I am nobody's judge. The word is going to judge you, yes. What have I been awoken to? I've been awoken to who I am and who the children of Israel are. That's what I've been awoken unto. Upon that awakening, he has given me more spiritual understanding in his book. When the awakening, you will know him and you'll see him in his true self, in his true light. When I was awakened, I understood who Israel was. Therefore, I had a better understanding of who he is, because it was given unto who did he choose as a nation to be a light to the Gentiles? Israel. He chose, the whole Bible. The whole Bible, he chose Yasharah, or Israel, to be his light in the world. What do you mean by chosen? I guess because we're just moved from. Right, right. So when you talk about the grafting in, now you're talking about something different than choosing Yasharal. Yeah, we're dealing with different subjects. So we have to, if we want to address each one, we can, but we have to be careful when we start to lump everything together and you just start to make a big bowl of soup. You're throwing in all kind of ingredients, and then you kind of lose sight of the realness and the what is really true. And back to being awakened, when I was awakened and I knew who Israel was, my understanding of the book enlightened me. When I would read Torah, it enlightened me. He revealed things to me in his Torah since I've been awakened that I had not seen before. So for me to say when I was awakened, even who Yahusha is, I've grown so much. His spirit led me to his name. I didn't know his name. I grew up like how you grew up. I mean, we both know the same thing, I didn't know his name until after he had awakened me and he led me in his Torah. The Spirit, the Ruach, led me. And that's one thing we'll go over a few verses on tonight, especially when it deals with the Spirit or the Ruach and what is being spiritual. Because I shouldn't say a lot, but almost everybody confuses rejoicing with spiritual. There's a difference between rejoicing and being led by the Spirit. You're dealing with two different things. So when somebody says, oh, they're so spiritual, I went into the assembly and it was so uplifting, it was so spiritual. They think that because we are praising and rejoicing, it could be I'm rejoicing because he brought me out. Don't get it confused. He delivered me from some things and I rejoice over that. Doesn't mean I'm spiritual. It just simply means I'm rejoicing. David danced. King Daud, he danced. He was so excited. He did the dance and everything. But just because they witnessed him dancing and dancing out of his ephod doesn't mean that was spiritual, where most people would say, well, I want the spirit of Daud to fall on me. You don't even know what you're talking about when you say the spirit of Daud to fall on you. Because especially when you understand who Daud was and his love for Torah and his law, he says, thy word, if I hid in my heart, I might not sin against you. He knew Torah. That you have to know Torah. Where you have a lot of people in the Roman religion, they deny Torah. They say we're not under Torah, which, so they say the spirit of David. Anyway, but we can't get it confused, rejoicing with being led by the Spirit or being spiritual. Because it even says in Nehemiah, the joy of Yahuwah is what? It's my strength. I benefit from rejoicing. I do. In fact, I think we need to rejoice more, not less. I think there should be more rejoicing. There should be more singing, more praising. That, we need to do that. That's good for us. That gives us strength. But I don't confuse that with being led by the Spirit. And we'll look at some verses today, tonight, to show you the difference between, rejoicing and being led by the Spirit. Because there's some confusion out there when people say, well, you guys aren't spiritual. Well, let's understand what spiritual is. Now, I would agree we need to be rejoicing more. And sometimes I wonder, where is the joy? And so, and we can't pump joy up in people. Either you have it or you don't. But we used to sing the song, when I think of the goodness, of Jesus, or think of the goodness of Yahushua and all he's done for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah. There's that rejoicing when I think about what he's done. And, but when he awoke in me, now I'm spirit-led. I'm led by the Spirit, and I understand the difference between praising, worshiping, rejoicing, and being led by the Spirit. Because you can't lump them all together, which a lot of people do. They want to lump them all together. They put everything in a big old pot and they stir it up like this. But it's good to understand, what you're talking about and stay within the text of the scripture and of the verses. And that's what, when he awakened me, he's given me so much. And I'm just at the start of my journey. It seems like every time I get into a deep study in Torah, he's enlightening more. He's just bringing more out, which the Ruach is supposed to. Okay? Because what is Yahuchanan 16:13? What does that say? Yahuchanan 16:13. And I might even come back to this because that was good. That's Psalms 37. We might come back to that. But Yahuchanan 16:13. Now, we'll see if you're spiritual, okay? Howbeit, when he, the spirit of truth, or the Ruach, is come, what is he going to do? That's spiritual. That's spiritual. So if somebody says, oh, are you spiritual? Well, yes, because he's guiding me into all truth. Don't confuse rejoicing with spiritual. When King Daud was spinning around like a top and foaming at the mouth, what did they think he was? They thought he was crazy. They said, this man is mad. So let's don't confuse spitting and hollering and even speaking in tongues. Let's not confuse that with being spiritual. Because he says, when the Ruach has come, he's going to guide you into all truth. He shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak. And what is the Ruach going to do? The Ruach is going to show you things to come. That's what the Ruach's going to do. So somebody who is spiritual should be able to show you things to come. If there's no eschatology in the assembly, then you can't show nobody things to come. That's what this is dealing with. Things to come is dealing with eschatology. And the Roman religion hates Israel, the true Israel. The Roman religion does. It hates Israel. In the Roman religion, it will not tell you things to come for Yasharal. What is the eschatology in the Roman religion concerning Yasharal? You know what I mean when I say eschatology? Yeah, speaking of end times. The last days, speaking of getting an understanding of the last days, eschatology, end times, the study of end times. So the Ruach is going to give you an understanding. You're not going to know everything because even Yahusha says he don't know when he's coming back. Didn't he say that? He says no man knows, not even the Son, when the Father's going to send him back. So being spiritual means that you'll understand, or you'll have somewhat of an understanding of end times. And it's going to be the end times for Yasharal. So what is the eschatology for Yasharal? You can determine if somebody's spiritual if they know the eschatology of Yasharal. I want to show you some difference between first let's go to 1 Thessalonians 5:16. This should be an easy verse. Everybody knows this. What are the two shortest verses in the Bible? Yeah, and this one right here, 1 Thessalonians 5:16. The two shortest verses in the book. Yahusha wept, which is in Yahuchanan 11:40 something, I think. Something like that. It says Yahusha wept. And what did he weep over? Lazarus. Because he was getting ready to raise him from the dead. Mary and Martha and the whole people was just crying and sobbing because Lazarus was his friend. Lazarus was his friend, and he had died. And so it says Yahusha wept. So the other short verse is rejoice evermore. Rejoicing. Rejoicing is elation. I'm excited. I'm elated. Right? I mean, rejoicing means there's some happiness there. And well, wait a minute, let me back that up. Because you can rejoice and not be happy. I mean, the whole world could be falling apart around you, and you can still rejoice. When rejoicing is true in me, rejoicing does not depend on my present day condition. Because if rejoicing was happiness, boy, none of us would ever rejoice. I mean, because how many happy days do you have? It seems like I don't have that many happy days. Doesn't mean I can't rejoice. I'm not saying I don't rejoice. We should rejoice, like it says here, rejoice how much? Forevermore. So even though there's no happiness, even though I'm in a broken relationship, everything is broken down, should that stop me from rejoicing? No. I should still be able to rejoice. Spouse just left me. I can still rejoice. My kids don't want to have nothing to do with me. I can still rejoice. Mom and daddy put me out the house. I can still rejoice. I lost my job. My economic picture just plundered. I can still rejoice. I don't see what y'all so happy about. None of y'all got no money in the bank, but my rejoicing doesn't depend on that. Whether I've got money or not. Because a lot of people, man, all I got to do is have money. I'm going to be money. Isn't that what they say? Money buys happiness. Isn't that what they say? Money buys. But that happiness is different from rejoicing. He commanded us to rejoice. There's feasts that come up. He says, and whenever we had a feast, when they had a feast, it was a time of rejoicing. We're coming up to a time of Pesach. We're understanding what Pesach is, but there should still be a rejoicing spirit in you. I still want to rejoice. I can't believe she carried that in here. I should still be able to rejoice. And we're coming up on that feast. You guys take that downstairs, that big old box, and that's that other desk. We got the short desk and the long desk. I should still be able to rejoice. And with this feast that's coming up, and especially when we think about, okay, we're going to celebrate the Pesach. It's the Passover. I'm understanding what the Passover is. But in 1 Corinthians 5 and 7, who's our Passover? Yahusha. Yahushua Mashiach. It says Mashiach is our Passover. So even though I'm studying about the original Passover and what they did and the command to keep the feast, I understand what my Messiah went through and the sacrifice of my Messiah, and I can rejoice, and I should rejoice, because it's through his sacrifice I don't have to worry about the blood of bull and goats, like Hebrews says, it could never take away sin. The blood of bull and goats can never take away sin. So he was our sacrifice for us, and on that day, when he wipes away all of our sin, and we're looking for that day. We're looking for that day where he wipes it clean, wipes the slate clean. That day hasn't come yet, but we're looking for that day. So rejoice forevermore. Nehemiah 8 and 10. Here it is. Then he said unto them, go your way, eat the fat and drink the sweet, and send portions unto them of whom nothing is prepared. This was a time of a feast. This was a time of a feast. For this day is Kodesh, or set apart, unto our Yahuwah. This is a day that is holy unto our Yahuwah, or set apart unto our Yahuwah. Neither be ye what? And this was dealing with a feast. He says, for the joy of Yahuwah is your strength. So there should be some rejoicing going on. I get strength out of that, especially when I know it's a feast. We'll read it in Exodus chapter 12. But this is Yahuwah's feast. He plainly says it. This is my feast. This is Yahuwah's feast. And it wasn't a time to be sorry. Even though when I think about what my Messiah, my King, even though I think about what he went through, and it is, I don't know about y'all, but almost any time I read Isaiah 53, it just works on me. Isaiah 53 works on me. Because I think about everything that he went through. And I said it earlier because I'm going to be bringing out some scriptures. I hope we're writing them down, taking note, because some of you are the head of your house and you'll be doing the Pesach at home. There's scriptures you should be reading. And because we'll bring out some scriptures in Isaiah, even the 50th chapter and the 53rd chapter and the 52nd chapter. Isaiah 50, 52, and 53. And what our Messiah had to go through to be our sacrifice. That's what we got to remember this. He said, remember my death. And that's what we're doing. But he says, neither be ye sorrow. He says, I want you to rejoice. Now, how can I rejoice over my Messiah dying? How do I find joy, even when it says in Isaiah 53, and we'll read it, it pleased Yahuwah to what? To bruise him. And these people talking about they know, I know God, I know the Lord. No, you don't. No, you don't. He didn't even spare his own son. Look what he did to his own son. And most of us think we're going to escape. Look what he did to his own son. So even though I'm sorry, but as we go through the Pesach and everything, because we're the whole chronology of it. Where is my rejoicing then? When in Pesach here, as we come up to Pesach and everything, where is my rejoicing? Where's my rejoicing? Huh? The blood was shed. He's our sacrifice. He shed his blood. Where's the big rejoicing at? Where? He rose from the dead. He got up. So when I read that and I understand what he had to go through for us, but I'm still rejoicing. And the fact that he brought me out. He brought me out of the miry clay, it says. He brought me out of a horrible pit. So even though, look, we're going to chronicleize it and see what he goes through and everything. And it is painful. It is sorrowful. But he says here, so the Levites still all the people saying, hold your peace, be at shalom, shalom, for the day is holy or set apart. Neither be ye grieved. Because he ain't in the grave. Oh, no, he ain't in the grave. Never to die again. And he's up in the Shamaim on the right hand, which means he's got all power. He's given his son all power. He says, all power is given unto me. He didn't say he was Elohim. He says, all power is given unto me in the Shamaim and on the earth. It was given. Who gave it to him? His Abba. His father gave power. That's what it means by being on his right hand. I'm giving you power and authority. So the joy, the rejoicing is my strength, and we should rejoice. We're coming up on the time. This is a rejoicing time. But look what he had. He had to go through all this. We'll read verse in Isaiah 50, Isaiah 52, and Isaiah 53. He had to go through all that. But he shed his blood, and he said, the only sign I'm going to give you out of all his life, he says, I'm only going to give you one sign. What was that? The sign of Jonah. Just like he was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish, I'm going to be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So everybody that does Good Friday and Easter Sunday is not his. Those aren't his people. And I know that's tough on us. I know it is. I know it's tough because we were there. That's what we did. We used to paint eggs. We couldn't wait to get our eggs and paint them. We had Easter egg hunts. We ain't even supposed to. He says in Deuteronomy 23 and 13, he says, don't even make mentions of other L's. Don't even let it come out your mouth. That's why sometimes I'll just E-A-S-T-E-R. I don't even want to, I'll spell it. S-A-T-A-N. How come you always saying S-A-T-A-N, S-A-T-A-N, S-A-T-A-N? He says, all them other gods, he says, I don't even want it to come out your lips. So I'll spell it. Yeah. And that's in the church because the Roman religion is not the faith of this book. It's a different religion. I'm just going to drop this. Because after Pesach, we're going to get into some prophecy and everything. And I'm taking it slow because I don't think you should. You're dealing with prophecy and with Daniel and Revelation. You don't need to get in a hurry. Take it slow. But just let me drop this. Every world empire has a religion. And Yasharal was no different. Because he says, I'm your Elohim. I'm the Elohim of Yasharal. I chose you. I chose Yasharal. I didn't choose those other nations. He says it in his book. This book was written to Israel, Yasharal. That's who it was written to. The people who wrote the book outside of, well, some people will contend with you. Well, Luke was a Gentile. He was a physician that went with Shaul. But outside of Luke, everybody that wrote in this book were Israelites. And history tells us that Matthew, didn't write Matthew. History tells us that. Mark was the first book that was written. And out of what we call the 4 Gospels, only 2 of them walked with Yahusha. Who were those 2? Yahukhanan's one of them. We know Yahukhanan's one. Who's the other one? Huh? I heard it. Yeah, Matthew. You had Matthew and Yahukhanan actually walk with him. John Mark, remember Shaul was talking about John Mark? He's the one that wrote the gospel, what we call the Gospel of Mark. And his was penned before Matthew, Luke, and John. In history, when you go back into history. It was the Roman Catholic Church that put the books in the order that we have it. They did that. When you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, or First, Second Corinthians, First, Second Thessalonians. But anyway, when you look at those books, they're not written in the order, or they're not placed in the Bible in the order that they were written. And there's some Bibles, the Restoration Scriptures, some of the other ones, and they chronicleize the books. And some of the first books, you've got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You got the Torah, the first one. But up there in Torah, in Genesis, you have Job. So he's up there in Genesis. But when you look at where he's placed in the Bible, oh my goodness, he's placed way. No, he was way up there. So the way our book is not chronicalized, that's just how the Roman Catholic Church put the books in order and gave to us. That's how they did it. Romans, when you look at Romans was written right before he died. He even says it. He was in Rome. He was in house arrest. He was in house arrest the last 2 years of his life. Romans was written about 66 AD. You had a lot of books that were written before Romans, but they placed that one first after Acts. I wonder why. Wonder why. So being led by the Spirit, let's see some examples about being led. Let's like when he says the Spirit is going to guide you into all truth. That's how you're going to be spiritual. You wanted to see how you're spiritual. Let's go to Acts chapter 8 and verse number, was it 32? Let's see. Okay, let's go down. I want to go down, this way. I want to go down to the next to the last. This is the Ethiopian eunuch. See, here's water. What does him be baptized? And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him or immersed him. And when they were come up out of the water, the Ruach, or Spirit of Yahuwah, caught away Philip, and what happened? That the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing. But Philip was found where? Azotus, and was passing through. He preached in all the cities till he came to Caesarea. This is somebody that was led by the Spirit. So you can say he was spiritual because the Spirit caught him away and moved him. Spirit got him. Ruach reached out. Let me grab Philip. I'll move up and put him over here. That's being led by the Spirit. He was led by the Spirit. Because it says, let's go to Romans 8:14. Romans 8:14. Because he says here, for as many as are led by the Ruach of Yahuwah, they are the sons of Yahuwah. Those that are led. So when you had Philip, the Spirit or the Ruach picked him up and moved him. That's being led by the Ruach. That's being spiritual. Now, who was rejoicing? The Ethiopian eunuch was rejoicing, but we see the Ruach moving Philip. So you can't say rejoicing is spiritual when you see him rejoicing because he received the Ruach HaKodesh. Y'all know how it was when you got the Holy Ghost? Y'all know how it was. I'm singing. Some of us, we thought we were Superman. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. But it was Philip that was led by the Ruach. So for me to think that rejoicing and being led by the Ruach is the same thing, I have an elementary understanding of Torah. It's time to go deeper. It's time to go deeper. Acts 16:6. Let's see if you're ready. Let's see Acts 16:6. Now, when they had gone throughout Phrygia and the region of Galatia, and were forbidden by the Ruach HaKodesh to do what? Those who are led by the Ruach, they're the sons of Elohim. This here has nothing to do with rejoicing, but these people were spiritual. Because when you're spiritual, you'll be led by the Ruach. You'll hear the Ruach. The Ruach, the Spirit, led me in Torah. The Ruach opened my understanding in Torah. Oh, there was times where, man, I felt good. Then there's times where I'm kind of, my spirit is kind of broken. So they were led by the Ruach HaKodesh and told them, don't you preach the word in Asia. So I wonder who is really leading these people nowadays. I don't think it's the Ruach HaKodesh. I really don't. Let me see this. Let's go to Acts chapter 2 and let's look at verse number 5. And they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Yahudim, and what were they? What does it mean to be devout? Would you say a gangbanger is devout? You would say a gangbanger is devout? No, I'm talking about devout to the Most High Yah. That's what we're talking about here. These were devout men out of every nation under heaven. Devout. Well, let's see what that word, can you pull that word down? Let's see what it means, devout. Let's see. (21:26). Let's pull that one down. Yolabis. Taking well, carefully, that is, let's go up on the definition here. That is circumspect, religiously pious, to somebody that's pious. So when you're dealing with devout, you're talking about somebody who is pious. They were devout. They were very circumspect, which means they were very cautious about their lifestyle, what they did. Very cautious. They were devout. Okay, so let's go back. So, yeah. Yeah, we're going to go there. Yeah, we're going to go there. So let's go to Acts chapter 10, verse number 1. Acts chapter 10, verse number 1. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian, a devout man. And what did he do? He feared Elohim with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to Elohim always. So I'm going to ask you again. Do you think gangbangers are devout? When there's talking about these men who were devout, listen, what did he do? Feared Elohim. How do you know somebody who fears Elohim? They obey him. If you fear Yah, you're going to keep his commandments. The fear of Yah is the beginning of knowledge. He feared Elohim with all his house. You think he was a drug dealer? Gangbanger? You think he was a robber? Now, we do have somebody in this book that was a robber and a murderer. Who was that? Somebody said Jesus Barabbas. He was a robber and he committed murder and insurrection. Did he get saved? Did this man get saved? Let's go back to Acts chapter 2, verse 5. Yes. Well, that's probably in the English language. Yeah. And you know what our book calls those people? Zealots. But they were more devout to a cause. They were called zealots. So they were devout men. Devout men. All of those let's give me some names of those in the upper room. James, Mary Magdalene, who else? Because the Bible speaks of 3 Marys. Mary, the mother of Yahusha, Mary Magdalene, and then Mary, there was another one. I don't know, but I know there was 3. So they were there. All his disciples were there, right? What about the traitor? The traitor? He died. Yeah, he wasn't there, was he? So all of these people that we're naming, everybody that we're naming, do you think they were devout? They were devout. So when you look at the first ones in, when he poured out the Ruach HaKodesh, he poured them out on who? Devout men. You look at everybody in the upper room. Barnabas wasn't in the upper room. He was a robber and a murderer. Cornelius was somebody that he feared Elohim. What are you saying? We have to be careful when we associate rejoicing because he took Newports out of my mouth and being led by the Spirit. It's not the same thing. It's not the same. Man, I was so wicked. I was rolling with guns, gunplay every day. It's just a miracle I'm still here today. How many people do you know that's associated with gunplay that's up in here? Even when you hear bullets whistling by your head, and that easily could be you. That don't change them. That don't change them. These were men and women that he had purpose to redeem. You mean he ain't going to redeem he ain't redeeming everybody in Israel. The point that I'm trying to make is we can't confuse rejoicing over being delivered from a prostitute or a drug dealer when I am rejoiceful that he took that away from me, but I have to understand that's not why he made me. He didn't make me to run the streets. That's not a part of us. We shouldn't be doing that. But they glamorize it. They glamorize gangbanging. They glamorize gunplay. They glamorize drugs. They glamorize gold grill. All in your mouth. They glamorize going out to clubs and the table full of bottles. I don't see these people who were first given the Holy Ghost, I don't see none of them doing that. These were people that feared Elohim. Even when I'm going to leave it alone. Yahuchanan 1:47. You know who else was in that upper room? This gentleman was up there. And what did Yahusha say about him? Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is what? He was in the upper room. There's a lot of people he cleans up before he even gives them the Holy Ghost. We call it repenting, but when they went to Yahuchanan the immerser, their mind was made up. They had repented and they were confessing their sins before they were even immersed. There was a cleaning up that went in their life to make them like this before he even gave them. The point that I'm trying to make is we can't confuse rejoicing with being led by the Spirit. Don't confuse that. You're dealing with two different things. It is in order to rejoice. I do it because I could still be hooked on Newports, blowing my lungs out. I could still be smoking dope, blowing my head out, having a blowout, doing cocaine. We could still be doing. I'm thankful and I rejoice when I think about where he brought me from. But that's not being spiritual. We can't confuse the two, because when you start to confuse the two, you'll get hooked up in emotions and think that emotions is spiritual. When Yahusha said in the 6th chapter of Yahuchanan, he says, my words are spirit and they're what? I speak life. I speak life. My words that I say is spiritual. My words are delivered. They're spiritual. Oh, wait a minute. I don't see nobody jumping and shouting. Because we look at jumping and shouting, which we're rejoicing, but if you're not careful, you'll think all emotionalism is spiritual. And that's not true. We've seen here where the Spirit took Philip and moved him. We've seen where the Spirit took him. No, you ain't going over there. That's spiritual. Romans 7 and 12. Aren't you glad he picks everybody? I'm glad he picks everybody, but the first ones he picked, Jonathan or Nathaniel didn't have no guile. Like you said, these were some devout people. Does that mean he means? Because even Shaul says in 1 Corinthians 6 and 9, he says, know ye not that all of this stuff will not inherit the kingdom? And you know how he finishes that up? He says what? Such were what? Some of y'all, but you've been washed. So he's cleaning up everybody. But when he chose his first ones, he chose some devout people. Barabbas had to keep on going. Judah, the betrayer, they call him Judas Iscariot, but it's Judah betrayer, he went and killed himself. So he does save everybody. The point that I'm trying to make is we can't confuse rejoicing with being led by the Spirit. You're dealing with two different things. And you need to see that, because he commands us to rejoice, but then he'll also lead us by the Spirit. You have people who go to these churches, and on first day of the week, which there's no doctrine in this book for first day of the week worship. You can't build a doctrine in this book on first day. Does that impact anybody? They don't care. And so you go into these churches and the organ is playing, the drum is beating, folks is jumping and shouting and crying and screaming. And you say, man, it was such a spiritual service. People were rejoicing, yes. Some of that is just emotion, y'all. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He said, man, the Spirit was all up in there. They Methodist folk. Because you can confuse emotionalism with spiritual. So we got to see what's spirit. We have a couple examples. There's more examples of those who were led by the Spirit. He said those who led by the Spirit, man, them the sons of Elohim. If you can't hear the Spirit speaking to you, don't you go into Asia. I forbid you to go into Asia. What if they got so caught up in a revival and they, oh man, singers, I feel like busting into Asia. They would be going against the Spirit. They're not led. If they would have done that, they weren't led by the Spirit. You've rejected the Spirit. Oh, but the service was so hot. You have to know what is spiritual. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy and just and good. So, what you gonna say about his Torah? Now, Shaul says his Torah is holy because you have those who will say, we ain't under no law. So what they're saying is, we're not under the holy commandment. We're not under that. Well, how could you be led by the Ruach as a son and not be under this? Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy and just and good. Is holy, is just and good. Was in that which is good made death unto me? Elohim forbid. So is the law dead? Notice what it says. Was then that which is good. What's good? Oh, the law, commandment, that's good. So is the law made dead unto me? No. Anybody that says the law is dead and we're done with the law, no more law, you're speaking from Constantine's mouth. You're not being led by the Spirit. I don't care what your name is. And you can turn me off. But one thing you're going to hear at the end, you're going to hear this. When you get to where you're going, you're going to hear this. So is the law made death unto me? No, not at all. But sin. Oh, so what's supposed to die? Sin is supposed to die. So we're going to come back here. 1 John 3 and 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is a transgression of the law. So what should die in me is transgressing against his law. I can't transgress his law. That's what's supposed to die in me. The law ain't supposed to die. Let's go back to Romans 7 and 13. Is that where we were? Yeah. Was then that which is good, talking about the law and commandments, was that dead? Was it made death unto me? No, Elohim forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, which is the law, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. It should be exceeding sinful for us to transgress his law. I should be afraid. I should know what that Torah says, and it should bring fear in me. I can't transgress against it. That which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. Because it's going to tell you. For we know that the law is what? Oh, I thought y'all wasn't spiritual. Y'all ain't spiritual. Don't listen to that. When people say that, they say that because they're caught up in emotionalism. They're rejoicing because he brought them out of sin. It don't stop there. It don't stop there. For we know that the law is spiritual. I'm carnal. I'm what? Sold under sin. And then he goes on to tell you, man, when I would do good, he was present with me, man. I can't get rid of this. Because the law that he's dealing with here is the law of sin, which is where? In my members. That's what he's dealing with. And they think he's talking about Most High Yah's law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They think Shaul's talking about Torah. He's talking about he even says it. I find a law in my members. And it wars against the law of my mind, trying to bring me into captivity to the law of sin. And that's what he's dealing with. He's dealing with the law of sin. But we can't see it because that old Roman, has blinded your eyes and turned you against law because he hates his law. I'm trying to tell you, every world empire had a religion. Keep that in mind. Put that in your back pocket. Every world every world empire had a religion. It's all in our book. All those other nations, they had their gods. He told Israel, I don't want you guys to be like them. Don't you serve their gods. And what did Israel do? Serve their God. He made Israel beautiful. He says, in your nativity, when you was polluted in your own blood, I chose you and picked you up. I cuddled you with love. I made you beautiful. I decked you out. I did that. I made you beautiful. But then you trusted in your beauty and you went and played the whore, and whoever passed by, his it was. That's in your book. I decked you, I made you beautiful, and you went and played the whore. So in Isaiah chapter 3, he tells them, all this stuff gonna come on you women because you got puffed up in your beauty. That's when he starts talking about the crispy pin, your hair falling out, everything. Your children gonna rule over you. Who runs our houses? For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal. I'm sold under sin. So when Paul is dealing with this sin, he said, it's not I that do it, but sin that is in me, because there's a law in his members, and it's called the law of sin. And that law was put in our members because our first father sinned. Our first father sinned. Because he says in Romans chapter 5, by one man, sin entered into the world. And death by sin, death cut you off from me. But by one man, the righteousness of one man, he brought him back. But he still got law. Did the sacrifices, let me ask you this, did the sacrifices of bulls and goats, when they sin, and you go to Leviticus chapter 4 and 5, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, it talks about the different sacrifices for sin. So after they sinned, and then they gave the sacrifice of a bull or goat, whatever they have to do for their sin that they committed, did that stop the law? Oh, you mean the law went on? So our sacrifice for sin, which is his only begotten son, because it says in Hebrews 10th chapter, ain't no way bulls and goats going to take away sin. I'm going to give my son. He says, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It's written of me to do your will. So when he died, and it says, and we're coming up on Passover, he is our Passover. So through his death, because our sacrifice died and shed his blood, does that stop law? No, it didn't stop it back then. It don't stop it now. Just because he's a sacrifice for sin, Most High Yah says, I gave my best. We don't need no more. I gave my only begotten son. We don't need no more. He shut the altar down. He shut Jerusalem down. The whole temple was destroyed. The altar, everything. Levites scattered abroad. Shut it all down. I gave my best. I gave my only begotten son. Romans 8:32. This is one of my almost one of my favorites. Almost. I don't know. I love all of them. I love all of them. He that spared not his own son, but what did he do? Delivered him up for us all. How shall he not with him also freely give us what? All things. When he gave me his best, ain't no house compared to his son. Don't get it twisted. Ain't no car better than his son. Ain't no job better than his son. Ain't no education better than his son. He said, I didn't spare my own son. I delivered him up for y'all. I didn't spare him. And we'll read Isaiah 53, and we crying over little bitty stuff. I don't know if he's going to do it. I don't know. That might be too big for him. I don't know. I don't know, Doc. I don't know, Doc. That suit costs a few dollars, man. I don't know, Doc. He did give us opportunity to go get our heart's desires if you got the money. You can go to the shop and say you got the money, get you something that your heart desires. Because if he didn't spare his own son, wait a minute, y'all don't believe this. How shall he not with him also what? Freely give us all things? And he says in Isaiah 55, come by with no money. He says you ain't got to have no money. Whatever you want, just come on and get it. That's almost one of my favorites. I got a lot of them, but this is a good one here. When you think about what he gave us, because y'all know, y'all ain't giving up your kids. Y'all know how we love our kids and our grandbabies. I ain't sacrificing my son for no dusty roughneck Negro. You ain't, no. Y'all ain't nothing but a bunch of robbers and stealers anyway. Bunch of drug heads. Irresponsible derelicts. And you think I'm going to give my best? Oh, but he did. He did. You couldn't get nothing better than that. You can't get nothing better than that. So I'm giving them to y'all. And Yahusha said, Abba, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Because he knew what, and we'll read it. There's some scripture we got to read. Because he knew, because he read the prophets. He knew what was going to happen to him. He said, if it be possible, let this cup pass. Y'all know he asked him that more than once. He said the second time, he said, well, if it be thy will, nevertheless thy will be done. 3 times he prayed. It said his prayer, the sweat came off of his brow like great drops of blood. He was praying so hard because he knew what he had to go through for me. That's how I look at it. What he had to go through for me. We put him up there on the cross. He says, because of your sin and your transgression, I'm going to bruise him. Not because he didn't do nothing wrong. It was because of us. Oh, man. Let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 4. Hear ye the word of Yahuwah, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Yasharal. Thus saith Yahuwah. Listen to this question. Listen to this question. What iniquity have your fathers found in me? This is the Most High Yah. He chose these people. And he says, what iniquity have you found in me? And I ask that to people today who trash his law and say we're not under his law and the law is done away with. What iniquity have you found in him? That they are gone far from me and have walked after vanity and are become vain. He even says, don't you take my name in vain. And that vain is emptiness. It's an abyss of emptiness. You make his name where it has no effect and have walked after vanity and are become vain. So what iniquity do you find in him? What did he do wrong? Psalms 19 and 7. What did he do wrong? The law of Yahuwah is what? What iniquity did you find in him? And I'm talking to all them people that say, I can do all things through the Mashiach. Well, his law is perfect, but that. You ought to add to that verse. I can do all things through the Mashiach, but keep the law. That's what you should say. And my question is, what iniquity have you found in him? I'm going to ask you the same thing the Most High Yah asks his people. What, did I do something wrong? Is there something? My law is perfect. The law of Yahuwah is perfect. It converts the soul. The testimony of Yahuwah is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of Yahuwah are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahuwah is pure. And what does it do? Enlighten the eyes, or it gives you revelation. His law will give you revelation. His commandments will give you a revelation because it's going to show you who he is. I sure wish we were all believers, but I know we're not. So those who don't believe, I'm going to ask you what Yahuwah asked you. What iniquity have you found in me? Is there any sin in Abba Yah? Oh no, there ain't no sin in him. He's perfect. I'm gonna give you something perfect. And that's why Shaul says, it's holy, it's just, and it's good. He just kept going on. So if I'm spiritual, I feel like preaching. Psalms 119, verse number 8. Man, it's getting good. Psalms 119, go up. Let's go up. Oh, man. Where? Oh, maybe it's verse 18. Just let's go down. Maybe it's Psalms 119, verse 18, is it? There it is. Yeah, verse 18. Open thou mine eyes, that is, give me revelation, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. Open thou mine eyes. Psalms 119, verse 18. That I might behold wondrous things out of thy law. That's when you get revelation. That's when you get revelation. And everybody can't get, it takes his spirit to give you revelation. If you're spiritual, you're going to get revelation. If you're spiritual. You can rejoice and be happy, and we can praise, and we can sing, and we can shout. But don't get that mixed up with being spiritual. Because if you can jump up and sing and shout and then go right out there and commit sin, you ain't spiritual. You're not spiritual. Those who are led by the Spirit, they're going to keep Torah. Because the law is spiritual. Man, there's just so much good stuff in here. Is it verse 11? What does verse 11 say? Oh. I want to dance like King Daud danced. Well, King Daud says, thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee. That means I got to get Torah down here. For everybody that says it's what's in your heart, oh, if it's Torah in your heart. Don't just flat out say what's in your heart. No. The word, thy word have I hid in my heart. Because if I have his word down in my heart, I'm not going to sin against him. Because I know what he says. I know sin is a transgression of his law. That's why I got to have it in my heart. Do you know the statutes and the ordinances, all the statutes and ordinances that he gave us is so that all of the statutes and ordinance that he gave us supports his covenant. He gave us his covenant, which is the 10 Commandments. Statutes and ordinances that he gave us is to support that covenant. So if I want to know how to keep that covenant, I have to listen to the statutes and the ordinances because that helps me keep that covenant. The covenant was 10 Commandments. And he wrote it with his own finger. He didn't leave it up to Moshe to write it. I wrote it, put it in the ark. Do y'all know that ark is still on this planet today? And when they open up that ark, because we're going to get it when we get over to the kingdom, go back into Jerusalem with Yahusha, you're going to have the ark. You'll be able to see those marble stone tablets with the writing from the Most High Yah. And he didn't write it in English. And over in New Mexico, Los Lunas, New Mexico, on an 800-ton stone, they've got the 10 Commandments written in Paleo-Hebrew, which lets you know somebody from the descendants of Yasharah was over here. And they wrote it in stone. In Paleo, you can see his name in Paleo-Hebrew. So when everybody say the Father's name is J-E-S-U-S, all you got to do is point him. That's not true. Because the Father's name is Yod-He-Ud-He. And the Son was named after his father. Because y'all know how we are. We have sons. We want to name them after us. If your wife lets you. No, one book is enough. We ain't going to have another one. We going to name them something else. But most men like to name their sons after them. The first one has to have my name. Because that's how we did it in Torah. Father would name his, oh man, y'all know this, right? Y'all know this, right? Because when Zechariah, it came time to name his son because he was the Spirit, the Ruach, sealed him up. He couldn't talk till his son was born. And he told him what his son's name was going to be, Yahuchanan. And they said, wait a minute. Ain't nobody in your family named Yahuchanan. You ain't going to name him after yourself? Because that was just common practice. You name your son after you. So Yahusha came in the name of his father. So we're going to see let's go to Deuteronomy 18. And so let's hurry up and get into our class for tonight. Deuteronomy 18 and verse 18, right? Hold on. Deuteronomy 18 and verse 18. And we'll go through this pretty quick. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. So when Yahusha speak, whose words are he speaking? His father's words. His father's word. In his mouth. And he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto whose words? My words, the Abba's words, which he shall speak in my name. What am I going to do? I'm going to require it of him. There's a day coming. There's a day coming where everybody's going to have to answer to if they kept Father Yah saying through his son. Nobody can deny the son. We need the son, but the son is coming to speak for his father. He's not coming speaking anything new. He's speaking for his father. So let's see. Matthew 4 and 4. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Elohim. So we have to ask all of our brothers and sisters, are you living by the words that proceeds out of the mouth of Elohim? Because the son now is going to speak the father's word. And the son never approved breaking any commandments. Not even the Shabbat. The son never ordained the first day of the week and then called it after their deity and told you to go into his house and worship under their deity. Son never said that. There's nowhere in this book where you can preach and teach a doctrine for first day worship. It's even named after their deity. It's named. Look at all the days of the week. It's named after their deities. And you honor the first day in the house under their deity. Every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Elohim. So we just have to ask, do y'all believe that? So let's see some things that we got to live by everything that comes out of his mouth. Everything that comes out of his mouth. Exodus 12. Exodus 12, verse, let's look at Happy New Year, y'all. Happy New Year. And happy birthday. Somebody's birthday today. Happy New Year, y'all. Exodus 12, let's look at verse 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to verse 2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to who? To Yasharah. Yasharah. So I know what a lot of people are saying. Oh, hallelujah. I'm so glad I'm not Yasharah. I'm glad I ain't Israel. You'd be surprised who's Israelites now. But he said, all of y'all, he says, unto you now. Now, Yahusha says you got to believe every word that comes out of his mouth. Who's speaking here? Let's go to verse 1. Let's see who's speaking. Let's see what's verse 1. And Yahuwah spake. So this is words coming out of his mouth. Yahuwah spake. This month shall be unto you a beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So what if somebody says, no, Father Yah, we want to change it. We want to change the times, and we're going to change laws. Well, Daniel prophesied that. He prophesied they're going to change time. That fourth beast. Who is the fourth beast? Yeah. Who is the fourth beast? Rome. So what did Rome change? What's the Sabbath now? They changed it. Rome did. Rome changed it. The calendar that we have, it's the Greco-Roman calendar. Greco comes after Pope Gregory. The new year starts in the spring when everything's coming to life. But according to the Roman religion, the new year starts in the dead of winter when everything's dead. And then they name that month after their god, their deity, Janus. That's their deity. And you don't hear about it in these churches because, well, there's a lot of reasons why, but okay, let's go down to verse number, let's hear what else Most High Yah has to say. Verse 14. Oh, y'all know, hold it. Let's go back up. Let's go back up. Let's see, is it verse 8, maybe? Let's see. Yeah. And they shall eat the flesh of it in that night. We're taking notes, right? Roast with fire and unleavened bread with what? They shall eat it. So when we have our Passover, we have on the 10th day of the month. Now this is the first day. This is day 1. The night precedes the day. So actually we're into the night of the second day. We're into the night. So tomorrow from 6A to 6P is day 2. So we had to count 10 days. What's going to happen on the 10th day? You have to choose your lamb. Now, some of you, if we wait till the 10th day, it might be all out of the market. But you need to find a lamb that you're going to have for your house. We're going to purchase the lamb that we're going to eat that night because there's not supposed to be no leftovers. And I know the first time we did it, man, we had a big old meal, didn't we? I mean, I think we had greens and potatoes and probably some mac and cheese. I wouldn't doubt it if we had mac and cheese up in there. Lamb, and we even had something else besides lamb. We was having a feast. Almost like, not quite, but almost like 1 Corinthians chapter 11. When Shaul says, man, y'all come up here, y'all having a feast and everything, and all you're doing is providing for yourself, and some folks are hungry. You're not doing it right. If you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and I've got down to 3 classes now I got 3 classes, but we have to get to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. But he even talked about, hey, you guys aren't even doing it right, So we have to understand how to do it. It's not a meal to where you're going to get the temptation to gluttony can't be there, because gluttony is a sin. So we can't be gluttony. And you're supposed to eat. You put on your plate what you can eat, and you eat that, and no leftovers. Now, the next day is the first day of Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're supposed to have unleavened bread at Pesach, and then for 7 days after that, we have unleavened bread. We eat unleavened bread for 7 days. And I hand it out, and if somebody needs it, let me know. I can get some more copies. everything that we are allowed to eat during that week, and then what we're supposed to get out of our house. And I usually have a little baking soda in my water every morning, but we're in the days of preparation. So we should be going through trying to get the leaven. Anything that you use to prepare food or prepare bread to leaven it has to be out. That's it. If you've already got bread prepared and it's got leaven in it, you have to get that out. Anything that causes that has any yeast in it or leaven to cause when you're doing your baking or whatever, that has to get out. Yes. About what? Yes. Right. Well, let's see what this says. What is sodden here? Let's look this word up. Verse number 9. Boiling. We don't want to boil it because it has to be roasted. Let's see what sodden. What does that word mean? And nor sodden at all. So let's look at 13:11, 13:10. Let's see what that says. Boil. We're dealing with boiling. Boiling of meat over a fire. So like if you put it in a pot and you're boiling it over fire. Because that's how they would do it back then. They'd put it in a pot, put water in it, and then they have fire underneath it. It's not. So it's really not something that's supposed to be tasting really good. You know how we like to sit down and eat. This has got to be we choose certain places to eat whether the food tastes good or not. And that's not what we're dealing with here. So bitter herbs will kind of give the meat a different kind of flavor. But basically it's just you don't want to boil it. Don't want to boil it. Okay, let's go back. Yep. The roasting fire, nothing should be left till the morning. Okay, verse 11. And thus shall ye eat it, your loins girded, with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. Whose Passover is it? It is Yahuwah's Passover. It's not ours. It don't belong to us. We don't have any right to say you can do it or you can't do it. We don't have that right. It's not our Passover. This is Yahuwah's Passover. It's his feast unto him. And he's the one that's giving the directions. These are words that are coming out of his mouth that Yahusha told us we have to live by this. Let's go down to verse number 14. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, which means you're supposed to remember it, and ye shall keep it a feast to Yahuwah throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance for what? An ordinance forever. This is a feast that we're supposed to keep forever. And the reason why we haven't been doing it is because we haven't been taught to do it. We've been taught that it's all done away with. Yahuwah says we do it forever. So you have to decide, do I want to, like Yahusha said, you have to live by every word that comes out. Do I want to follow what Most High Yah says, or do I want to follow the Roman religion? Let me say this real quick. Yahusha is not the father of Christianity. He's not the father of Christianity. Christianity was given birth to in AD 325, and we could read the creed up here because Constantine says, we ain't doing that. He says, we ain't doing that. You can go throughout the book of Acts. They kept it. because we'll go to Acts chapter 12. It's days of unleavened bread. It's time of the Passover. He says, oh, let's not do it now. This is their Passover. We'll wait till after their Passover. In the 12th chapter of Acts, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, he says, Mashiach is our Passover, therefore keep the feast. And you do it with all honesty. It's a feast for, okay, let's go down to verse number 17. And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance for what? That's the second time. This is unleavened bread, which is you've got the 14th day, which is Passover. 15th through the 21st day is unleavened bread. And when you go to Leviticus 23, we won't have time tonight, but Leviticus 23 verses 4 through 8, it deals with the Passover, a high and holy day. The first day of Feast of Unleavened Bread is like a Shabbat. It's a high and holy day. And then the 7th day is a high and holy day. Or like a Shabbat. No servile work. So this is an ordinance forever. So for 7 days, we're supposed to eat unleavened bread. And what is the unleavened bread? When we're eating the unleavened bread, what does the unleavened bread signify? I mean, what does it mean to be unleavened? Put away sin. I can't have sin in this vessel. In my temple. I can't have sin in my temple. So it commemorates the fact that and it also is his what? His body that was broken for us. And we have to, we'll get there on Shabbat. We'll have to see it in Isaiah 50, 52, and 53. We're going to bring out some scriptures because he says, this unleavened bread that you guys are getting ready to eat, he blessed it and he broke it. He said, this is my body. I'm going to be broken for y'all. And it says in Hebrews 12, it says he despised the shame. Y'all know they stripped, after they beat him half to death and put a crown of thorns on him, they took his clothes off. He was up there naked before the world. Let's go down here real quick because we're about done. Let's scroll down to verse number, 43. I think that's 43. Because what I wanted to do was to show you. Let's keep going down. Yeah. Is it 43? Oh, 47. Circumcised. Okay. There's another verse in here. I thought it was. Okay, let's go down. Wait a minute. What does this last verse say? Okay, there's another verse. Let's go. There's another verse where it says forever. I want to show you because there's 3 times in this chapter where he tells you you're to keep it forever. So let's go up. That's what I'm trying to find. Is that? Okay. In there. Okay, I missed it then. I missed it. Is it 24? Okay, let's look at verse 24. Yeah, there it is. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. So this is the third time. 3 times he says forever. 3 times. So if he tells you once, you think you get it. I'm going to tell you again, that's 2 times. He tells you the 3rd time, if you ain't got it by now, you just ain't going to get it. Because he does say it 3 times that you're supposed to do it forever. We were never supposed, but you can't do something you're not taught. If you're not taught how to do it, you're not going to do it. We just go as we're taught. So it's up to our leaders to teach us. But we've got too many leaders, even here in verse 27, that you shall say it is a sacrifice of Yahuwah's Passover. It don't belong to no preacher. It don't belong to me. It's not me. That's his Passover. Okay. All right. Questions or comments? I don't know if there's anything out there. But we're coming up on a very important time, and we're going to keep the Passover. And you're going to see when we get to Matthew and one thing I want to bring out is let's go to Hebrews 6:1 real quick. I'm sorry for keeping y'all for so long. I'm sorry. Do you know what this is coming when you look at verse 1 here? Because we go from chapter to chapter, but you know what this is coming after? Let's look at Hebrews 5:14, and then we'll come back to so here he says, for the time ye ought to be teachers, you have need of one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Elohim, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. So on the heels of that, because we always go from one chapter to another, but in the original text and the scroll, how it's written, it's one continuous scroll. So he says, everyone that uses the milk is unskillful in the word, for he's just a babe. Strong meat belonging to them that are of full age, those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Now let's go to Hebrews 6:1. So he's continually writing here. And he says here, therefore, after reading all of that, at the end of Hebrews 5, he says, therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Mashiach, let us go on unto perfection. When I know the oracles of Elohim and I am a teacher, I can't teach milk all the time unless you just got babes. But if you have full-grown people to where you can teach them some strong meat, because the church is scared of this. He taught all day, didn't say his name. I didn't hear him say Jesus Christ once. You know what? He didn't give no glory to Jesus Christ. But little do you know that all of Torah is his glory. All of Torah is his glory. Because Torah was made flesh and dwell. So he says, therefore, when you ought to be teachers, and I got to teach you again, and I got to give you milk because you ain't of full age. I can't give you no meat. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Mashiach, let us go on unto perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works. You mean we have to teach repentance every single time we come together? Not when you know Torah. You do teach repentance, because if we did it by the book, all of those who were baptized, even by Yahusha, they repented before they went to the water. You don't see too many folks coming up here repenting. Do y'all know show me in Torah where little children were getting baptized. Show me that in Torah. It's not there. He says the promise is unto you and to your children, and as many as far off that I'm going to call. The children that he's speaking of there is the next generation, generations. That promise is still in effect today. Generationally, it's still in effect. When somebody makes up their mind to follow Yahusha, ain't no turning back. Because he goes on to talk to you about those who started off but went back. Oh, I can't even get into all of this. I can't get into all of that. Okay, we can't lay again the foundation of repentance unto death and of faith toward. Y'all don't know that you got to have faith? You'd be surprised what I hear when people say, oh man, it's by faith. You got to have faith to be saved. We know that. I know it's by faith. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for my faith. I wouldn't have experienced all the miracles if it wasn't for the faith that I have in him. Of the doctrine of, they don't want to hear that. And of laying on of hands. Y'all ain't spiritual. And of resurrection of the dead, and of eternal judgment. And he says, and this will do, what will we do? What will we do? We'll go on to perfection. He says, this will do if what? If Elohim permits. If he gives us time, we're moving on to perfection. I can't keep laying the same foundation. Those foundations have been laid. They've been laid already. So we're going to finish up tonight. Thank you for attending. I do apologize for being long-winded, and please forgive me. But we'll be back here on the Shabbat. We've got 1, 2, 3 more classes before we actually have Shabbat. Before we actually have Pesach, right? Three more, because 2 weeks from today, because you got count 14 days, 2 weeks from days is Pesach. And I won't be here, but you'll be here, and the ministers and the notes, and you'll know what to read. The Ruach is going to guide you. He'll give you this. Read this, read it, because we'll go over a lot of different scriptures, and we haven't hit all of them yet. But let the Ruach lead you on what you should read, at the time of taking of Pesach. And then we know after he ate his meal is when he took the unleavened bread and broke it and said, this is my body. And he took the cup, divided and told, drink ye all of it. This is my blood. And I would suggest if you got children, just using a little wisdom, if you got little children, they're underage, you don't have to don't give them no wine, give them some grape juice. You got children underage. But they had wine. They had wine, and they drank the wine because that was the life of the flesh is in his blood. So there has to be some spirit in it. And y'all know how, because I seen some of y'all faces. I drink all of it. I put some wine. Drink. Faces because it's supposed to have spirit. It's his blood. So it's not his. I got to be careful. It's not his blood. It's wine that we're drinking, but the life of the flesh is in the blood, and so you do have. If you take all the blood out of your body, you ain't got no spirit. So it's not grape juice. Basically, what I'm saying, it's not grape juice. They weren't drinking no grape juice. It was wine. Because you got some folks still, they just drink grape juice. And then you got some folks, they give you just a little bit like this. You got to put something over it, otherwise it'll evaporate. Because alcohol, right? So you got to put something over it. We don't want to leave it out here too long. It's just so little, it'll evaporate. No, they poured it in the cup. We have to mature. I mean, we have to mature, So anyway, so we'll be back on the Shabbat, and we got 3 more lessons, and then we're going to take a Pesach and unleavened bread for 7 days. And this is a time, like it says in the 12th chapter of Exodus, he says this is a time to be remembered. What's ironic about today is we're coming up on the second Exodus. There's going to be another Exodus, and that's what we're coming up on. And I wouldn't be surprised I don't know when it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think we're really close. I think we're close. Because he says that last 42 months, he has to protect Yasharal. He's going to protect them because the world's going to go crazy. And if you're still in this, when he brings out all his people, if you're still here, your only hope is to be beheaded. That's your only hope. And even when he gathers his people, that's not the time of the resurrection, because the resurrection doesn't come until after that 42-month period is over, and you had those who didn't take the mark and they got their heads cut off. They were resurrected. They're in that first resurrection. So the first resurrection doesn't come until after the tribulation. But there is a place of refuge for his people. He is going to gather us, and he's going to protect us, because he's got to deal with us face to face while the whole world's falling apart. So the resurrection doesn't come until after that, to where we'll see some of those who've gone on before us. That first resurrection is not till after that 42-month period is up. A times and a half time, where the world is going to be so bad, it's going to be a time that the world has never seen before. And if he doesn't shorten those days, he says no flesh will be saved, because it would be a nuclear holocaust. And he's not going to allow them to destroy the world, because he's going to do it. He says, I'm going to do it. Before the new heaven, new earth comes, this is going to roll away like a scroll, and it's going to burn up with fire. And then, like Kepha said, there's a new heaven, a new earth. Isaiah says there's a new heaven, a new earth. Revelation says there's a new heaven, a new earth. We've got a lot of witnesses that talks about the new heaven, the new earth. And that's when you'll see the city. So there's some things we have to go through before that plays out. But we're coming up to that 42-month period. Times and a half time. We're approaching that. And so he's going